All right, good morning out there, Block 2 students. This video is only for you. You should be watching it on Wednesday, March 20th, I believe it is. And Block 4 doesn't meet today because they have SOL testing, or you all have SOL testing, but Block 4 doesn't meet today. And you guys have a really long class, something like 3 hours in class. So, what I want to do, rather than get out of sync with the other section of the course, is I am going to unleash a preliminary version of our e-commerce websites on you and let you start playing around with it a little bit. This may not be the final production version, and I'll tell you why as we kind of go through here and look at what we're doing. There are no lecture slides associated with this, what I'm doing today, but there are some web-based resources that you'll be able to access as we go through today's presentation. I hope you're paying attention, because that's how you'll get your access credentials, your administrator access credentials to your websites partway through this presentation. So let me show you what we're doing here. So here is a DNN content management platform web portal. And if you look at this web portal, I'm going to copy this. I can't make it bigger the way the system works. I can't make it bigger, but what I can do is put it in Notepad, and then I can make it as big as I want. And so what I want to show you here is what the URL of your website looks like. And let me see if I can. Spread this across the page here. And I'm going to have to make that just a little bit smaller. I don't want it to go down to 2 lines. So hopefully you can read that URL there. It says http://g10.anacata.cyber.longwood.edu. This is the format that your web portals will be in when you're working on your e-commerce site. I can't really change the format that these are in. I know it's kind of long. If you want to know why, obviously you probably know that longwood.edu is the top-level domain for Longwood University. I have a subdomain called cyber that belongs to, it's a subdomain under the Longwood domain. And then I have a server actually named Anacata. If you wonder where the name Anacata comes from, it's a famous hacker alias. So it's the alias of a real-life cyber hacker. And then within that, I have to make web portals on the server. And the web portals are just individual websites that all reside on this server here. And so that's how we come up there. And G10 is just group 10. There are not 10 groups for this project. I'm just using G10 as a demo group to show you some things today. And then the HTTP part is just the web protocol that we use for retrieving web pages from web servers. So it is the standard web protocol that you probably are already familiar with. Of course, we could have HTTPS, and I've done that in the past, but the problem is, by the time if you want to use HTTPS, you really need to buy a digital certificate to put on your web server. And by the time I buy a digital certificate and put on my web server, the class is over, and we really didn't get that much out of it. If you were doing this in a production environment, you would most certainly want to use HTTPS instead of HTTP. Almost all commercial websites or production websites now use HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. Matter of fact, if I go to something like, let's say I go to msn.com. I'm not going to copy this one, but I will. I'll copy it. But you'll see that MSN automatically goes to an HTTPS website. Even though MSN isn't trying to sell you anything, they don't want somebody to get on their website and post fake stories out there that might hurt their credibility. So they protect those transactions using the secure version of HTTPS. We're going to have a lecture on website security on Friday, because Friday is another strange day. You have a half day, one class has 30 minutes, one class has an hour. So I'm going to try to, and I think you guys have the hour, and the class that doesn't have meet today has the 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to keep that fairly brief on Friday and talk about website security, and I'll talk about what it means to use HTTPS in detail during that lecture. But what I want to do today is show you the basic thing that happens when you're building a web portal. If you can see it at the top of your screen, I hope you can, this is a default website. So this is when you create a web portal in DNN, this is what it looks like. And I'm going to log in and walk you through that process here in just a minute. On this web portal, up in the top right corner, you have a login button and you have a register button. I am going to use the administrator account for this web server, or for this DNN installation actually, and I'm going to log in as what they call a super user or administrator. Each site has an administrator, so they don't call it an administrator. The super user has privileges to all of the websites. So I'm going to log in here and show you how this works. So the super user by default, and I just used the default name here, is called host. See if I can remember what I said as the password. Looks like I did. So I am logged in now, and you'll see up here it shows that I am logged in as the super user account. And when I log in as the super user account on a web portal, I get a menu up here called the host menu. And one of the things I can do under the host menu is go down and manage the portals or the websites that are available within this content management system installation or DNN installation. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see there's a bunch of websites: Group 1 portal, Group 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and a couple of others that I have on there for other things. The others are actually broken, but I left them there for a specific purpose that we might talk about later on. But I'm going to create a web portal and show you what is involved. And you ever wonder why or how some of these web hosting providers like Wix or GoDaddy or any of the other big web providers can give you a website for $2.50 a month or some crazy number like that? That's because this is what they're doing. They're going down here and clicking on the Add New Website, and I'm going to give it an alias. And I'm going to give it a title. Let me do this. I could put a description or keywords in there, but once you have an administrative account, you can change those. And I'm going to deselect this box. Most of the time, I would probably just leave this box selected, but I'm going to deselect this and put some information here for an administrator of this website. If I leave the main box selected, I, as the super user, become the default administrator for this website. But when I deselect that, I'm able to give each website a separate administrator account. And so I'm going to give this site an administrator account called admin G12. And I'm going to give this person a first and last name, call them G12 admin. You'll see why I did that in a minute. And then I'm going to give them a fake email address. And it doesn't really matter what I put in here. Because I don't actually have a web server connected to this. We don't need to send a bunch of web or an email. I don't have an email server. I have a web server. You're looking at it. I don't have an email server connected to this web server. And we would just be sending a bunch of garbage emails back and forth, so it doesn't really matter. In the real world, I would absolutely have an email server connected to this web server. But then I'm going to give this a password. And click on Create Site. And I'll get the little progress indicator there for a minute, and then it'll tell me, hopefully, that my site has been created with some errors. And the errors that I will get are related to the fact that there is no email server. And so there you see, there was an error sending confirmation emails, problem with the configuration of my SMTP server. I knew that. I don't have an SMTP server. That is what it takes to create a website once you have the web portal software installed and configured. Not too tough, is it? And then I just close out of that, and now that new website will show up, and we actually see it right here. Group 12 portal is set up and configured on this installation of DNN. And so I could log into that portal, and we may do that in a minute, but for right now I'm going to stay in the G10 portal. And so this is where I manage everything for all of the websites that you'll be creating. And you can see I've created a bunch of portals that you'll be using to create your sites. There's other things I can do in here. I can look at, as the super user, I can look at some of these other features. I can look at what kind of operating system it's running on. It's actually running on Windows Server 2012 with Microsoft IIS 8.5. Tells me a lot of things about the installation, what some of the security users, there's a user called IIS App Pool that is the security user that has permission to access the web server files. So it tells me that kind of things, those kind of things that I need there. I can look at information related to the database server, how much data is in there. Right now there's only 86 megabytes of data. This particular version of the SQL server that I have attached to this web server can handle up to 10 gigabytes of data. You think 10 gigabytes is a lot, but it's not. It's really a fairly small amount. But I would imagine it will be plenty for what we'll do in this course. If we start using more than that, then we'll have to look at, are people putting real high bandwidth items or large high-res pictures and stuff on their website. Maybe we don't need that. That's a good reason, by the way, to make sure that you're appropriately controlling resolution and video fidelity so that you don't fill up your database server, because every multimedia object that you store in DNN gets stored as a database object in this database. So that's the type of information I get in here. And there's quite a bit of it, and I don't want to spend an overly long amount of time on it, but I just wanted to give you some idea of what I can see and what parameters I can see as the super user. But what you really want to see is, how do I build my e-commerce site? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out as the super user, and I'm going to log in to that site we just created, the G12 site. It'll pop up here in a second. You'll say, hey, it looks just like the other sites. That's because it's using a default template to create the initial home page. Hopefully when you finish configuring your websites, they won't look like this. If they do look like this, you'll probably get graded poorly, because it means you haven't done a lot of customization on it. So I'm going to log in, and the user I created to log into this was admin G12. And the password that I set is actually, I'm going to show you this. Is admin for G12, but I use the number 4 instead of the letters FOR. So admin for G12. I don't really care if you save the passwords. I typically don't, because I'm a cybersecurity guy, but this is a training system. So it's okay to let your web browser save the password if that's what the user credentials, if that's what you want to do. So here you can see I'm logged in as G12 admin, which is why I set the first name to G12 and the last name to admin. Now it shows I'm logged in as G12 admin. This is where you guys are going to start. You're going to log into your web portals using the admin credentials that I'm going to give you. And you'll notice up here you do not have the host menu. You have an admin menu. I had an admin menu as well, but to the right of it I had a host menu that you don't have, and I don't have when I'm not logged in as the super user. The admin menu in Project 2, you've been trying to determine roles that you'll use on your website and who's going to fill those roles. This is where you'll go and create security roles and user accounts for those roles. And I would show you that, but I'm going to show you that in conjunction with setting up your e-commerce store, which is one of the things that you can practice on today. By the way, this version of the server may not be the final version that we use for your sites that you'll actually do for a grade. It may be, I don't know. But if you screw it up at this point, if you're testing things and trying things and you break it, no harm, no foul. The reason I say that is this is a DNN 8 installation. I really wanted to do DNN 9, which is available now, but I've been having some issues with it, and I think the issues are related to our hardware. The servers that we have are a little older, and they don't seem very receptive to running the new version of DNN. I may get that working in the next few days, in which case, if I do, I'll use DNN 9 since it's available, but if not, we'll use DNN 8. They're actually very similar. The big difference everybody talks about is this menu up at the top here that I'm using has moved over to the left-hand side. And there's a lot of things that are taken out of DNN 9 that were available in DNN 8 and are no longer there in DNN 9 because they're actually doing that in preparation for the next version, DNN 10. They're trying to wean people off of using certain features that are going to be removed entirely in the next version. So they've kind of made it, they've made it where things are not installed by default, but you can still install them. But eventually they will go away. The other difference between this server that you see right now and the server that we will actually use for our project, if I can get it to work, I usually can, I got this one to work, is this one has a product called NB Store version 3, which is the new Bright Store. It's an e-commerce module that you'll build your e-commerce store in. They have a new version of NB Store. I'm going to open a couple of tabs here. If you Google NB Store, you don't want the NBA store. You might, but not for your e-commerce website. But you might want to go to this next link, NB Store e-commerce and e-catalog solution. And there's some documentation out here about how to configure this and set it up and use it. One of the problems with the documentation is it was written by French developers and it's been translated to English, but sometimes the meaning of things is not as clear as we'd like. But if you are looking for documentation as you're working on your e-commerce project, here's where you can get the official documentation on NB Store, which is in the version that we're using now. If I can get it working, when they went from version 3 to version 4, they renamed the project entirely. Instead of NB Store, it is now called Open Store. Open Store meaning that it is an open source e-commerce store that anyone can download and use for free. Once again, be careful when the Google results come up that you don't click on the first one that's not related, but if you go to the second one, you'll get a page that tells you about Open Store. And if you're looking for documentation under here, you can go under Resources and click on Documentation, and you can find a lot of documentation about the store. If you notice, it says Open Store requires DNN version 8, which is what we're running. So this version should run, the 4th version should run on the current DNN server, even if I don't get that upgraded to version 9. I plan to do that, but I didn't want to do that right now today because I've been having some hardware failures in our systems. Typically what happens is when you get servers that are a few years old and then you experience a hardware failure, it puts stress on the other components, and then you get a series of failures related to that first failure, and that's what I've been experiencing. And so I am getting that resolved, and we will have a functioning server. There's no doubt about that. But I don't want to install the latest versions because I don't know what it's going to do to the somewhat tenuous hardware at this point in time. I know these versions will operate on it with no problems, so I've got that up and running, and we'll use it. If I can get the newer one working and I think it's stable and reliable, we will use that. But You have documentation for both version 3 and version 4 available online. And one of the things I'm going to ask you to do later today is to get some of this documentation and start going through it. Matter of fact, I actually posted a document on Canvas for you that, let's see if I got that up. Way down at the bottom of your Canvas page, I put this DNN resources module, and I put the basic install of NB Store version 3.5 on DNN 8. And this is what I think is actually a better guide on how to set up your store, and I'm going to be kind of walking you through that today. That's really what I want to focus on for today, is go through a basic setup of a e-commerce store and show you how that's done once you have access to your portals. You actually have access to your portals, but please hang on until I'm done with the lecture, and then I will give you plenty of time today to start messing around with that. So let me go back to my other website. I have, by the way, nope, not that one. Somewhere here. Here I have it open. This is the document that I posted on Canvas for you. It says, here's the steps you go through to install the store into your brand new web portal that you have available. And so we're going to walk our way through this document over the next 15 minutes or so and see how that happens. And some of the information we've already talked about, you'll see that we have to create some security roles, and we have to apply some people, we have to create some user accounts and put them in that role. So we're going to start off at the first thing you do. So assuming you haven't done anything else with DNN and you want to install this NB Store software, the e-commerce software, on top of your web portal. You go down to step 1, and it tells you to download actually 2 things, this template and a module, and add them to your DNN installation. I've already done that. They're already set up and configured. I can show you very briefly. That they're there. Easiest way to do that is probably to the easiest way would have been to show you as the super user. Let me go to the extensions menu. When we talk about modules and extensions, in DNN, a module is a type of extension. So I'm going to click on the extensions item in the menu up here. I could probably make this a little bigger. I don't want to make it too big so that it cuts off the screen there. I think that gets most everything that's important. So if you can't see it, I apologize. I'm hoping you can see everything that I see on the screen. And you'll see here a bunch of modules that are installed as extensions to the basic DNN functionality. And so I've installed a bunch of modules here, but what we really want to get down to and see is there's a whole set of modules that start with NBS. All of these modules here that start with NBS are the components that make up the e-commerce store. And so we can see that those are already installed, and that's what step 1 and step 2 are telling you to do. I missed one that was off the screen there. And then if we go further down, we'll see themes. And should have, Yeah, I don't see the theme I'm looking for, but maybe it's under skins. There's an NB Store specific theme, and it's not named NB Store. I don't remember. Let me go back to the documentation. Inbright DNN template sys. It doesn't show up under templates, but that's okay. I know it's actually installed. I don't know why it doesn't show up under templates. I thought it did, or maybe I'm in the wrong place. I'm under themes, not templates. They don't show templates here. Anyway, I installed both of those. Trust me, they're there. But these are the modules that make up the store. Essentially, everything that starts with NBS something is a part of the store. And there's a specific way they have to be set up, and that's what this guide tells you. The documentation here, this one, tells you the same things, but maybe not in such a clear manner as this other document that I posted for you. So after we've installed those, it says we need to add some special roles. And the roles that we need to add are manager, client, and editor. And so we need to add those. By the way, in the new version, there's actually 4 roles. Let me go back and show you that. In the new version, it tells me that I have to have administrator, manager, editor, and client editor. So they've changed those around a little bit in the latest version, but that's okay. If we need to do that, it's a simple change once you see how the process works. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to create some security roles, manager, client, and editor. So I go to my web portal, and I go under the admin menu and I go to security roles, and I can see security roles that are in here by default. I'm going to add a new role, and the first new role I was supposed to add was manager, and I could put a description, but I don't really need a description. And they put NBS manager. And really that's all I have to put there. So I just create that role. Everything else is fine. And then I create editor. And then I create, I think it was client. Client. So I create those 3 security roles. We haven't done anything with the roles, we've just created the roles. So once I've done them, I've created them, it says I have to add some pages to my DNN website. There's a number of ways that you can add pages to DNN. And they tell you to go to the DNN menu, admin, and page management. That's because if you're going to add multiple pages, it's usually easier to do it there. If you're going to add, if you're going to add a single page, you could do it here, add a new page, and you could go back to this menu and do it here over and over and over again. But they're telling you to go over here and go to Page Management, because we have the option to, or the ability within Page Management to add a whole bunch of pages easier than what we can do at other places. And so it tells us to add the following pages: online shop, and then as a sub-page to online shop, we need to add a details page. That's what this notation means. So I'll go back there and do that. I'll click on the root of the portal here and click Add Pages. And I'm going to add online shop. And the spelling of these with the dash, the hyphen in here is pretty critical. So make sure you do those just like they are done there. Oops. And I'm going to create that page. I could create some others, but for now I'm just going to, well, here, let me show you how I can create multiple pages. I have to create all of these others here. As well. I can go back over here and just copy and paste them in there and create all of those. I probably could do the subpage in here as well. Matter of fact, it tells me this note right here says I can create a hierarchy. You can prepend a line with a greater than symbol. So I'm going to go right here and take this details page and copy that and put it here. I couldn't do this if I was using the other menu that I showed you to add pages one at a time. So then I say create pages. So I just added 8 pages to my website, and you can see them all here on the left-hand menu, and if you open this one, you'll see it has a details page underneath it. So that's what we were trying to do. So once we've created those pages, there's some things that we have to do. We have to assign those roles that we created permissions on the page. We don't have to assign users yet to the roles. We're assigning the permissions that the role gets. Remember, we don't assign, as a rule, we do not assign permissions to individual users. We assign permissions to a role that somebody is filling on the web server. And so that's what we're doing now, is we're going to actually give permissions to the roles. And it tells us here that for online shop, details, favorites, basket, and payment, that administrators, those should be locked, but we have to allow all users to view those pages. We don't have to allow them to edit the pages, but we have to allow them to view the pages. So let's go over here to our portal. And there's not such an easy way to do this, but we click on Page Settings. And at some point it should show us this. And we go to the Permissions tab, and you can see here all users doesn't have view permissions, so we are going to give them view permissions and save that. Now I'm going to click on another one. We had to do online shop, details, favorites. I might as well do details, do them in order to make sure I don't miss any. So let me go to the details page. And what I wanted to show you is there's another way to do that as well. You can go under the permissions tab, for lack of a better word here, and I can do the same thing here. And then I can go down here and say update the page. And that you'll find that that's probably faster than doing it the other way. But there's multiple ways to do these things in DNN. So now the next one I need to do is favorites, basket, and payment. Favorites. Notice they are not in order down here, so we got to be careful. I can do favorites and basket. And then I got to make sure I get the right one for the last thing because it's not the next item in the list. Basket. And then I skip over checkout and go to payment. I think I already applied that, but I don't remember. After that one's done, I need to go to checkout, and I only allow registered users to check out and look at previous orders or their stored addresses. So I need to enable registered users for those. So checkout is only registered users. And my orders, when it catches up with me, my orders, and registered users under my addresses. By the way, a lot of this stuff is configurable, but you would be best off to not try to change the default configuration at this point till you have more experience with it. Disable include in menu page setting for details, checkout, and payment. So you don't want those, what you're saying when you don't want them to be included in the menu is you don't want somebody to pull those pages up on their own. Those items will come up as part of other pages or part of other processes. So we want to disable that for details, checkout, and payment. So when I go back here to my website, details is this one, And so I'm going to take off this checkbox for include in menu. And then the other ones were checkout and payment. Go to checkout, take off the include in menu, and payment. Take off that checkbox. So now we have to install the back office page that manages the whole store for us. It's a special page that does the administration of the store. Needs to be set up with a specific skin. So what we're going to do is create an NBS back office page underneath admin. You could really put it anywhere, but it recommends that we put it under admin. So we'll do that. So I'm going to go under admin here. And I didn't really need to open that up. I'm going to add a page. And the page is called NBS Back Office. Make sure I did that right. Yep, NBS Back Office. I'm going to create that page. And so now I have this NBS Back Office page here. So now what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add the manager and editor roles and give them view ability for that page. So I'm going to go down there. And I'm going to add, these don't show up. Interesting. I can probably do it this way. Go up here to Manager and say Add. And Editor and Add. And both of them get view permissions, which is what it told us to do over here. So I'm going to save that. Make sure I'm supposed to save that. Oh, set the appearance, before I save it, set the appearance page theme to Inbright Store Back Office. That's that template that we uploaded earlier that I told you I had already done. So I'll go over to Appearance, and under the page theme, I'm going to select MB Store Back Office as my page theme. And now I'm going to save that. So now we need to set up some pages. We need to configure some pages the pages we just created, we need to configure them in the back office. So now we're going to go to this back office page that we just made, and it's going to look kind of like this. So if I go over to my website, and I can do that a number of ways. I can right click on this and say View Page, or I can also go over here under the admin menu, and let's see, it should be in here. Interesting, I don't see it on here. It must have had the, let me go back and look at the settings for it. It may, because I had just taken off the include in menu for the other pages, I'm going to put that back on for this one, and I'll show you why. You don't have to. I could access it from right there, but I'm going to show you what happens when I put it back in the menu. Once this is finished loading, I want to let it load before I do that. So now if I go down here, now you'll see I have NBS Back Office here. That's the way most people like to access it, so try to remember to include that in the menu. And so I'm clicking on that, and I'm going to go to my Back Office page. Hey, all right, I got something that actually looks like a web store, and now you can actually see it a little better. It tells us, it gives us a red warning here that says store configuration needs to be done. That's okay. That's what our next step is. So we get this, and we have to go here and do the store configuration. So we're going to open that up and assign things just like they show in this image here. So we're going to go over here and go to store configuration. And it tells us that we need to start with the product list. It cuts off the others. It doesn't make us worry about the other things there. So we go down to the product list, and we set that to online shop. And product detail to details, and product search page to online shop. Details, online shop. Checkout, favorites, and payment all go to exactly what they say. Exit page is home. My orders is my orders. My profile is activity feed, and my addresses is addresses. Activity feed and my addresses. And everything else pretty much stays the same. There's an administrator pin in here. You can reset it if you want, but for this project, I would recommend that you just leave it at 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll look at some of these other settings maybe a little later on. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that today. And you notice there's no submit or save button down here at the bottom. Remember, this is an add-on module to the normal DNN software. The normal DNN puts its save buttons down at the bottom of the screen. MB Store puts them at the top. So you have to go all the way up here to the top and hit save. If you don't hit save, nothing you did will change. So I'm saving that configuration. And then I need to have some pages, some modules put on pages. So I'll show you how to do that. Believe it or not, we don't have that much more to do to get through this. So hang with me, and we will make it through this. And that's really all I want to show you today, and then I'll turn you loose on your website. Okay, it looks like it saved our data, the warning is gone now that we need to do the store configuration. So I'm going to exit out of the back office for now, and I'm going to just click on exit. It'll take us back to our main page, and then it tells me that I need to go to some of these pages that we created. So I'm going to open up page management. Easiest way to get to those pages for right now. And it says I need to go to the online shop page, and I need to add MBS product display. So I'm going to go to the online shop page. I'm going to right click on it and say view page. And right now it's just a blank page. There's nothing on it. But I'm going to go up to the modules menu, and I'm going to say add a new module to this page. The reason it's a new module instead of an existing module is it doesn't exist on this page yet. So it's a little wonky the way they do new versus existing module. If it's not on this page, it's new. Even though it already exists in the DNN installation. So I'm going to click on add new module. It's going to come up with a list of modules that I can add. And I'm going to go over here, and hopefully at the, I'll get all these NBS items. And the one it tells me, the first one it tells me to do is NBS product display. So that's still over here. So here I have MBS product display. And so what I can do is simply click on that and drag it down into, I'm going to drag it into the content pane. You can really put them anywhere on the page, but I'm going to drag it into the main content pane. And then it tells us to add the NBS mini cart. And so I'm going to find the NBS mini cart, and I'm going to drag it down here. And you know what? I'm going to put the mini cart in the header pane. I don't have to, I can put it anywhere, but I'm going to put it there. And then it tells me to do the MBS display search. It's going to be over to the left. Display search. I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that on top of the product display. I'm going to put my search functionality there. Again, these are decisions you can make. And last, the NBS category menu. I'm going to drag that down there. It's right here. And I'm going to drag that down there. And I'm going to drop it in this little side pane here. We may not like it there, but I'll try it for now. In each of those modules, it tells me to select the classic razor theme and save them. So now I have to go back to each of those modules that I put on the page, and this can get a little confusing because now you've got a whole bunch of editing buttons. So you got to make sure you're on the right thing. For example, if I go here to settings, this is, see the module title here, mini cart. So mini cart was one of the modules I added, so this is one I need to change. And what I want to look at, let's see if I can get to it over here. Nah, I probably need to go the other way. Need to go to page settings. Still not seeing what I'm looking for. go to this last one and select Classic Razor. And save that. And then I need to do the same thing for the other modules that I added to this page. So that was one. Go to settings on this one. And this is, inner title. That wasn't what I wanted, so I'm going to exit out of that without changing anything. So essentially that is a text box that's not one of the modules I put on the page. You might distinguish it because it has this little editing pencil that these other modules didn't have. So I'll go to the next one. That's the NBS product display. I did want to set that one to Classic Razor. And theme right here at the top, Classic Razor. Update. There's other things we'll be doing in that module later on, but for now we're just trying to get basic store functionality. So I have two modules done now. Here's a third one. And I'll set this one, if I wanted to see what it was, I could go back over here and see that's the NBS display search. Set it to Classic Razor. Update it. And the last one is over here on the left because I put it there. We probably won't want our store arranged that way when all is said and done. That's the category menu. And I'll set that to Classic Razor and update that. So now I've got the online shop page configured. So now I need to go to the details page and add NBS product display and NBS mini cart to the details page. So I am going to go to page management because details wasn't in the menu, and go to the details page and say view page. And then I'm going to add the modules, which in this case it told me to add product display and NBS mini cart. So again, I got to scroll over, get them up on the screen. Here's NBS mini cart. I'll go ahead and drag that down here. And then I'll go over and get the other one, product display, drag it. There, change both of those to Classic Razor. Takes a few minutes to set up, but it's really not bad. when you see the functionality that you get by doing this. Go to the favorites page, add MBS product display module. So I'll go to favorites. I can actually click on favorites here because it is in the menu. And then I can say module, add new module. It's MBS product display. Put it in the content pane. Now it tells me to do some things. It tells me to set classic razor, and it also says to change display type to selected list. Classic razor, and display type to selected list. And then basket, we want NBS full cart on the basket page. Saw that one, there it is. And of course we change it to classic razor. And then there's something else we have to do to this one. We have to select the checkout page for the checkout redirect. So we set checkout, and if you hover over the information there, it tells you that even though it doesn't say checkout redirect, if you hover over this, it tells you that's the redirect page. So we set checkout to checkout and save that. On the checkout page, we want to add the MBS checkout module. And I don't have the checkout page up here, so I'll go to page management and right click on checkout and say view page. Then I will add the MBS checkout module. All right, come on. I lost track of something here. Here's my MBS checkout module. Drop it in there. Might seem like we're doing a lot, but we're really not. It's really not that hard if you're just following the guide. Set that to classic razor. Set the payment page to MBS payment module. And I don't have that here either, so I'll go up here to my page management. We're at about 70 minutes in this lecture. My goal was to try to wrap it up within about 90 minutes, which is half of your 3-hour class, and give you the other half to work on that. So we'll see how close I can get to that. And we wanted the payment module. Sometimes when you're doing these things, some of the changes that you make may not, all right, that one's already set to Classic Razor, so we can just cancel that. We don't have to update it. We could update it, but we don't have to. My orders go to the MBS order admin. We add the MBS order admin to that. My orders is here, so I can just click on it. All right, I gotta remember what that one was. It was MBS order admin. Sometimes when you're doing this, things don't seem to update the way they should. So you might need to have your site restarted. That's something that only the super user can do. So hopefully you won't run into that. It doesn't seem to be a big problem. It just happens once in a while. Particularly if you're installing images for your products, or you're uploading images for your products and they're not working, that could be an issue. We'll get into that later as we get more in depth into DNN. My addresses, MBS address admin. It's one thing to have a guide to tell you how to do this. It's quite another to just kind of see the process and have somebody walk through it with you. That usually works a lot better. Usually the first time people do this, they make some mistakes. All right, that one's already set to Classic Razor. I don't need to worry about it. Activity feed. We can use MBS profile form for that. Activity feed's not in here. Go into page management. And this is the last one finally. And that was profile form. I'm going to put this one, you know what, maybe I'll put it, I don't like where it's coming. It doesn't matter, we can drop it anywhere. I'm just going to drop it there just because. Now when it comes back up there, I need to make sure it's set to Classic Razor. And then it says we must enter country delivery options in the back office. So we're going to go into the back office again and we're going to set this. And so I'll go over here, and since I added it in the menu, I can click here and go into the back office. And it says to go under settings, country details. And so country details, we're going to use English as our currency and dollar symbols. We could use other countries. And I'm just going to go down here for right now and say US. You can do other countries and other currencies if you want to, but I'm just going to do that for right now. Don't select all countries, you won't like the result. So I did that. Ensure manual payment option is activated. There's a bunch of different payment options. I'll probably demonstrate the PayPal credit card processing option later for you, but we'll be using pay by check as the option. So it's kind of manual payments. So manual payment, if I click on that, it says either check or transfer. We could change these, by the way. I can make it say pay by check. And then I can say when somebody does this, we're going to say that the payment is okay once they tell us they paid by check. That might be a bad thing to do in reality, but it works for us. Save that. And that should have meant that it got saved. We're not going to do the PayPal payment one right now. Then you can add categories and products to your catalog menu. And then we should have a store. But we still have other things such as shipping that we need to set up. We're not going to worry about those things right now. So let's see what happens once you have this all configured. You need to build a product catalog. Hopefully your store is set up now. And so let's add a category. And I'm just going to do this real quick. We're going to have a category called cool stuff. And so I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to have another category. I don't know, I'll just call this one other stuff. Oops, got to actually type in the thing here. I could have added them more than one at a time, but I like to do it this way and just save them. All right, I got two categories there. And so I'm going to put a product in or an article in a catalog, or in the catalog. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to find something. So I click on add and it says, what is this? Well, I don't know what we're going to put in our catalog. Let me go out here to Amazon, and the first thing we see is this little USB adapter for $8, USB-C adapter. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to steal this image here, copy image, and I'm going to go back to my portal, and I'm going to say USB what was it, USB-C adapter. Give it some sort of code. I could put search engine optimization data in here if I wanted to. Manufacturer, I'm going to put it's manufactured in China. Hopefully you'll do a better job than that. Notice the default shows that when you add a product to the catalog, it's hidden. Once you want to make it visible to a viewer, you need to unhide it. I would put a summary in there, but I'm going to go down here and add an image while I've got the image copied on my clipboard. And actually, yes, I need to, that won't let me paste it there. Well, let me paste it there. Let me get out of this. Let me go to all right, let me go back to my Amazon store. I didn't like that. Oh, there it is. That's probably a really big picture. 103 kilobytes. It's not actually too big. I'm going to look at the properties on this picture. You want the pictures to be JPEGs, and this is a JPEG file. I'm just going to say, I'm going to rename it, call it USB adapter. And so then I'm going to go over here, I'm going to copy this. Go back to my site. Try this again. Actually, I got to do it this way. And so there it has an image. And since I'm there on Amazon's webpage, hopefully you do a better job than I'm doing. I'm just trying to make this quick for you. I'm just going to put a description in here. Summary description. I'm just going to type that whole thing in there, and then I'm going to save it. Oh, the other thing I might want to do is assign it to a category. I'm going to go down here under the category menu, and I actually don't have a list of categories. I should have a list of categories there. We'll get there. We may have to exit out of the store and come back. So let me say save and exit. And let's see if I go back here to categories. Shows that I have two categories there. Oh, here's why. The categories are hidden. I have to unhide them and save them. Now if I go back into my article and click on this to edit it, and I go down here to categories, now I can assign it to one of these categories that I created and save that. Again, I don't have time to go through all of that today. There's a lot you can do with this. But let's go look at our online shop and see if we have products available to us. Hopefully this will come up rather quickly. Hey, and there you go. In my online shop, I have a product available that I can add to a shopping cart and start a checkout process. I don't have really time to go through the checkout process with you today, But what I want you to do is mess around with DNN and try to do what we just did today, what you just watched on video, and try to create a store and add some products. They don't have to be the products you're going to use. I can always nuke your store and create a new one if you mess it up. But try to set up and configure the store and add products to it. In order to do that, you need, really the only thing you need from me is kind of the instructions that I gave you. There's the file online, this file that tells you how to set up the store that we just went through the whole thing. Remember, step 1 and step 2 are already done. No, I'm going to say step 1 is already done for you. You need to start at step 2. So start at step 2, installing your store. You also need, or you might need, you shouldn't need, any of the other documentation yet. We'll get to that. I've showed you how to do everything in here. The last thing you need from me is your credentials for your websites. So if you are in Canvas, if you are a member of e-commerce group 1 or e-commerce project group 1 or whatever it's called, then your administrative user will be admin-G1 with no spaces, all lowercase, and your password will be admin for G1. And if you're in e-commerce group 2, you will be admin G2, admin for G2, etc., etc., etc. There's only 4 groups in block 2, so those are you'll have group 1 or site G1, G2, G3, and G4. The URLs to your sites will all look like this. You shouldn't need to put the HTTP. You can probably get by without that much. But what you'll want to do is type G1 or G2 or G3 or G4, and then it's Anacata, then my server, my subdomain, which is cyber, and then longwood.edu. So that's what your URL to access your website will look like. And just to show you that they're working, let me call up one of them. G1 dot. So here you see the Group 1 web portal. I've tested all 4 of them. They were all working earlier today. So hopefully you won't have any problems with it, but if you do, let me know. And so that's all I'm going to cover today. I'm almost exactly at 90 minutes, which is where I wanted to be. So I am going to turn you loose and let you do that. So try to access your site. As a rule, you should create a backup admin account so that you can get back into your site if you somehow get logged off. And the only other caveat I will mention is don't remove the login module from your home page. There's no need to do this, so don't remove it. We can talk about options if you want to hide that later on, but let's not do it right now. All right, hope you enjoy the rest of your class time. Work quietly with your group and check out some of this stuff and see what you can do. And I'll be back with you on Friday, fairly short lecture. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to do a lecture. I think you have a quiz on Friday, and that's probably going to take the whole time for one class. So we'll see how that goes. All right, that's it.